Initializing.
Welcome to Infinite Guys, the guidebook into Infinite Crisis. I'm Zacubus and this is How to Jungle Part 2. If you haven't seen Part 1 yet, I thoroughly recommend that you go back and watch it, because then this will all make sense probably. But last time, I think I left out quite a few details on what you should level in terms of your skills, so we're going to start off with that. So this is the overlay I made for Nightmare Batman. It's just a quick skill guide to help you level him up. But you don't always have to do it this way. You can mix and match it however you like. But one recommendation is that you don't mess with the bat swarm. Always make sure that you max that out as quickly and as soon as possible, especially if you're jungling with him. That's a must, because it's so versatile in its uses, and I'm going to give you a quick example of how you can use it. So we've already seen this enough time in video 1. Basically, the area of effect damage that the bat swarm creates actually clears out the jungle very quickly, as you can see here. Just wipes it out like pretty much instantly. But not only that, you can do it in the drone waves as well, on the lanes themselves, and push a lane up to a tower, get an objective that way. Also very good as well. What makes Bat Swarm so awesome on Nightmare Batman is that it's his stealth ability. Once you use it, press W for the first time, you go into stealth. As you can see, the colour changes on Nightmare Batman, and when you come out of that stealth, the Bat Swarm begins doing damage to all things, including enemy champions, not just drones, in that area. And of course, it gives him that element of surprise that you need to be a jungler, and having that is awesome. But there's other tools that make it even better as well. I'm showing you the same clip of when you enter stealth. Just notice the movement speed of when you're in stealth mode. It's just your standard movement speed, and sometimes you don't have enough time. It's only 3.5 seconds to get that gap closure. But look at this footage when you combined it with your E skill, Savagery, which is a movement skill buff and also a bit of attack damage as well. You sky across the map, you zoom across it as quickly as possible. It's really, really nice, and it just guarantees that you're going to get that gap closure. Now here's a great example of ganking with those two skills in mind and how they synergize so well together. So Joker looks a little bit out of distance just for my W, so I'm going to mix it up with my E. So I'm going to use them at the same time. Run in and jump right on the Joker. Bat Swarm opens up, doing that huge damage very quickly and able to pick up the kill. A little bit unlucky that Superman died as well, but he wanted that kill and luckily he got it. But all that damage was actually done by me. So here's another example of combining all these skills for Nightmare Batman, and this is combining his ultimate skill in this time. I can see top lane needs some help. It's getting pushed in pretty deep and Superman's doing quite a bit of damage, so I think we could pick up a kill here. So I'm going to use my E skill to run in and then stealth in with the Bat Swarm, and then use my Feral Embrace, my ultimate, and it holds Gaslight Joker in place, so he's unable to escape there, and doing maximum damage with that Bat Swarm. And just another quick bonus of the stolen powers here, as it's a great example in this footage. So Superman is getting away here. I'm trying to slow him down. I'm chucking my silver batarang. That has a slow effect on it, but it's not quite enough for me to get in range for this auto attack. So I have to use my detonate. So I target that drone closest to me, and then once it's in range, I use my detonate skill, and it does an area of effect damage yet again, killing off Superman because I was just slightly out of range to get that last hit. But it's just another example of how you can use these stolen powers to your advantage. So another example of using that great utility, which is the Bat Swarm, in a second. I'm just going to show you up, but I'm not going to use my E skill this time. Basically because you don't always have to use it. I mean, to get that gap closure. Sometimes the stealth itself is enough. You might have enough room. So what's useful is stealthing in and then using that E skill to do the final chase when they're trying to run away. But for in this instance, I'm going to actually combine the power-ups on the Gotham Divided with my Bat Swarm and my ultimate, just to see the devastating effect. And if somehow Joker got out of that, I have a speed boost from the speed pad to make sure I catch up with him, and also my my Savagery as well, my speed boost skill, which is my E skill. So there's no way he was getting out of that situation whatsoever. It's completely devastating combos that you can do with Nightmare Batman. Now with Nightmare Batman's skill sets, he lends himself really well to Fragment of Mogo, an item that has an activatable ability that does AoE damage, and it's kind of like the Bat Swarm, but it follows him everywhere. And you can see the massive damage it does as I open up with a bat swarm here, killing one, but also using the Mogos as well. And it has this burn effect and it follows Nightmare Batman. And then using it with my ultimate as well to make sure that they don't run away, doing double as much damage basically while using it. And also it makes you tanky as hell. Now Nightmare Batman's skill sets are so good, they practically do everything. They can zone out one enemy champion like a carry very easily with the ultimate. He's also got those AoE abilities in big team fights, the Bat Swarm doing damage of course, and if you get your Mogos, that constantly being there. And you build him like a bruiser, so you build him tanky as hell. Now his skills don't just work offensively, they work defensively. And as this situation will prove, I'm caught in an awkward situation, I'm trying to get out of it. I use that invis and try to juke the wrong way, but they catch onto it. I use my detonate there to destroy the car as well, and I'm caught here. And my cooldowns are up. And I'm getting blasted away, but I know I've got Raz Al Ghul's. This is going to save me. So basically it gives me an extra life. It's a great tanky item, but it gave me enough time to get my my cooldowns off reduction on my stealth and my speed as well, my E skill, the savagery. So once that happened, I just stealthed up again and ran away. And this is why Batman is so good, yet so goddamn annoying to kill. Now let's talk about some of the item builds that you'd build for Nightmare Batman, because I really didn't even scratch the surface before in my previous guide. It was just an introduction of what these items do. This isn't going to be too in-depth, but it gives you an idea of how to actually build. So first off, like I said, the Marauder Knife is something that you have to max immediately on Nightmare Batman. It just gains you levels, it gains you experience so much faster. You clear out the jungle more, easier, quicker. That gives you time to go out and gank. And when you get to that mid to late game, all you should be doing is basically ganking and pushing up lanes. But another great early item as well is that Hawkman's Harness. Basically, it gives you extra health for a very cheap price. And once you max it out to level 4, you can sell it for full retail price and then basically move into a better item like Mogos or Lobos straight off of that. And that's a really nice early build and sort of a good money saving tip basically. Right, mid-game items. So we've got the Marauder Knife yet again. Keeping it in the mid-game until you're ready to sell it to a Deathstroke's Claymore, which I usually get in the late game. That's what I usually sell the Marauder Knife for. Mogos, I always sort of build this as my third, fourth item basically. As soon as I can get it, I get it as quickly as I possibly can. Comboing it with that ultimate like I showed you in the video just before, it's so great. Gives you attack armor, gives you extra health, and of course that burning sensation as well. It's always a nice item. Lobo's Chain, great as well, gives you extra health as well, gives you a bit more damage, and also it has on level 4 a skill harrier. So every time you attack somebody with your auto attack, you slow them. It's a gradually slowing item, so the more you attack them, they just slow to a certain point. And it's great for Nightmare Batman because sometimes when people can get away from you, it's hard to get your cooldowns reductions in time. So Lobos just make sure that you keep them in range at all times. Sword of the Beowulf. Now this item is great against power damage champions. So if their composition, the enemy team, is going lots of power damage, this could be a good pickup for you. Basically, when you drop below 30% health, it gives you a shield for 400 when maxed to level 3. When on level 2, I think it gives you a shield for 200, so pretty damn useful, very good. Also gives you extra damage, power armor, sorry, as well. So very nice tanky builds. That's how I like to build Nightmare Batman. I like him to survive, be just a complete nuisance, staying on the battlefield as long as possible. Now moving on to the late game, Atomic Axe is a great pickup, does that extra damage, but also has that all important penetration, so you can get through those thick armors and actually land some damage, as in the late game people are going to be slightly more tankier just naturally, just with their item pickups as well usually. Then obviously we've got the Mogos as well. That's standard, you pretty much keep that all game, it's so useful. Then the Ra's al Ghul's, this thing is so good. It has an effect called the Lazarus effect. So once you get to 0 HP, you basically resurrect with a small percentage of health left. And this then gives you a chance to survive and fight back in the fight. You stay inactive for 3 seconds, I believe, once you've been killed the first time. So you can't do anything, and then the enemy will probably gather around you and try and kill you, or your teammates will come in and back you up. That gives you that time to maybe survive, maybe turn around a fight. It's very, very useful indeed, trust me on that. Another amazing late game item is Deathstroke's Claymore. Now it does 40% attack damage, 25% attack speed, but the really cool things is the Slayer ability, that which deals 5% of your current target's health as bonus attack damage. So that could be huge, especially on a tank. Does a lot of damage. And a Terminate skill as well, which is very similar. So once you activate it, it does 10% of your target's health on damage straight away on like a quick burst, and then it lasts dealing another 5% for 5 seconds afterwards as well. So works in the same way as the Slayer. It's just that the first instance you use it, it does like a burst damage of 10% of your target's maximum health. And it's a great replacement for that Marauder knife that gives you that damage on those drones, because it also does damage to the drones, but it scales on a max on drones especially. So it's only 200 max on the Slayer, and the Terminate is 600, but still huge damage is coming across, and I think that's usually about the same damage you'd get with the Marauder knife at level 4 anyway. So it does a whole bunch of good Deathstroke's Claymore in the late game. I've still got Lobo's Chain as well for that slow. It's always useful to catch up to things. Sword of the Beowulf still there. And now some optional items. This could include a lot more items in there, but I just put 4 in here. So first off, we have the Kryptonian War Armor. It gives basically more power armor, etc. But also it gives vitality. It gives 20% healing. It's a huge skill, and it just has massive regen on it as well. So it's just a good, great tanky item. Then we have the Suit of Sorrows, and this basically at max level gives you 100 attack armor, and it also has a unique ability called Mirror Defense, so it reflects 30% attack damage that comes in at you. So great if the enemy team is attack damage heavy in particular. Next we have the Soul Taker Katana. This is for some extra damage, 40% extra damage. It also has a 15% attack lifesteal and attack damage collector. So basically it gives 1 attack damage and 0.2% attack lifesteal whenever you collect a coin on the map. Max stack is 30, but you lose half if you die, so bear that in mind. Next up is Metallo's Heart. Now it's an odd choice for Nightmare Batman because he doesn't have will, and this gives 300 will at its max level, but what I build it for is basically the attack armor is really good on it. I think it's 70% max level, and also for the dampening field that it gives. So this dampening aura gives 20% slow attack speed to enemy champions in the aura's effect. So a big team fight, you can really change a battle. Your enemy team will be attacking you slower while you can attack them at the same pace you always have. Also, it's really good for those 1v1 situations when you're up against a marksman or a carry, and you can just slow down their attacks and just out-hit them basically 1v1, because your attack speed won't be compromised in any way. But with the Metallo's Heart, if there's another champion, a support or a tank character in your team that actually utilizes will as well, it's much better for them to pick up this item rather than you. You might as well focus on something else that would be more helpful. There's no point stacking to Metallo's Heart basically. There's no point getting those 2 auras. Get something else that could help out the team. So your early game so far has been focusing mainly in the jungle itself, just gaining your experience, your levels, your farms and some items basically. This gives you the ability to do small ganks, you know, manipulate the lanes so you may be winning them or slightly making them even. And if you get successful ganks on all the time, then lucky you, but you're not always going to get it right. But when you start entering the mid games, you're getting your core items, you should be really focusing on those team fights. So if you're farming, you should just be leaving halfway through. Even if you haven't finished farming, try and get objectives, because if we kill these 2 guys up here, we can actually push more and do more damage to the next tower as well, because the respawn times are getting slightly longer now as well, and the item advantage that we have as well, because we've been winning the early game, is pretty damn huge. So we shouldn't really have any fear, and we should just play a little bit recklessly. But the map, once you take all those early towers down, like the tier 1s, it will start looking a lot like this, and you have so much more room to move about, so much more options. And when the map is overextended like this, the Leviathan and the Raider become easy picks for you. You don't really have to worry about incoming enemies coming, because they're so focused on keeping their lane supported and pushed up. And also maybe lacking vision in their own jungle now, because obviously you've pushed up so much that it's so easy to capitalise on the Raider and Leviathan now, because the enemy is so pushed back into their base. And when it comes to the late game, the jungle really doesn't matter that much. The smaller camps that would usually give you credits and experience are obsolete pretty much. The only thing you really want to get are the power-up creeps, such as the Speed Destroyer, the Health Destroyer and the EMP Destroyer, as well as the Leviathan here that we just picked up, or the Raider. Getting those sort of objectives, because once you get to the late game and say you're in a very even late game with the enemy team, just picking up these small advantages, these extra skills like the power-ups, just like a tier 2 speed there. I mean, that just helped us clear out that Leviathan like really quick. Just those little edges, but tier 2 speed in a team fight as well would be devastating as well, even if the items are very even and everything's panned out very evenly. But as Nightmare Batman, his main role is initiation and finding those squishy champions and damage dealers to knock out. And as you can see, I can dive in here with the Leviathan shield, have no fear, and focus down that Cyborg, and now the Gaslight Batman as well, because he's just handed himself to me. So I'm going to finish out those damage dealers so the rest of my team can literally just clear the rest of this mess up. But it's fairly important, once you get to the late game, it's very important to save that ultimate for the right target, the thing that's doing the most damage to your team. I mean, it will instinctively actually come to you, because you'll notice who's doing the most damage, who's been the most influential enemy player. So saving that ultimate for that key moment is very vital. Now, Nightmare Batman isn't just an initiator as well, he makes a great split pusher as well into the late game. So if you're struggling pushing in one direction on the map, so here on the minimap we can see my main team pushing into the mid, but they seem to be tangoing there, and this is just an opportunity for us to actually split push and, you know, get this tower down. And he's got so many utilities to get in and out of fights, Nightmare Batman, that this is why it makes him a great split pusher, and especially if you've got your teleport as a stolen power as well, which most pro teams will do. And once you're more familiar with the jungle, I recommend that you do go teleport and detonate as your stolen powers for him, because he's just brutal, absolutely brutal on the split push. You can't catch him down, and then he's a great initiator and also a great counter initiator as well. He just has a complete package as a bruiser and as an assassin as well. And you know, if the circumstances are right, you can actually build more damage items on him, go a little bit more experimental with your builds. But to be honest, in a team composition, you always want to build him as a bruiser, getting lots of tank and a bit of damage on the side as well. So I had a couple of comments on YouTube last time on my previous guide. Which routes do I take? Do I have any sort of predefined routes that I like to take to clear out the jungle more efficiently? And I somewhat do and I somewhat don't. It all depends on what I'm playing against. So last week you mostly saw me without playing against an enemy jungler. So what that meant is I came from my base straight away into their base, basically their half of the map, and took their Health Destroyer, which gave me a power up back here. And then I took this small camp here, getting more experience and credits. And then I actually came off of that to gank into the lane, because I was already ahead of levels. The enemies here were still level 1, so had a bit of an advantage to come in, and it would have been a 3 versus 2. So I did some damage, and the enemy team, if I just draw them in here, had to back off. They didn't like it. So that meant my team would gain more experience and more credits, giving us a bit of an advantage. I didn't pick up anything though, I just did a bit of damage. So I immediately went back into the jungle to farm this camp, another easy camp to handle. Even early on, most of the camps are very manageable, but when you get to a destroyer like this early on, and you've already done a previous destroyer here, it can be quite difficult to get the second one down. That's where having 2 stolen powers when you're first learning how to jungle is pretty useful, because you're usually guaranteed to clear out the Health Destroyer and the Speed Destroyer and not have to back to base first. So that's why I recommend using those 2 stolen powers to get used to it. But once you're more adapted to it, I think detonate and teleport is the way to go on Gotham Divided. But from there, I then went on to this camp, went to my friendly tower here to pick up some items, because I after killing all of this, I've got some credits, so I need to sort of speed up my jungle, and to do that I'd pick up the Marauder Knife and sort of continue to level that up to max level 4. And then I just come into this half of the jungle, clear out this camp, clear out this camp, clear out this camp, and because there is no enemy jungler, and usually at this point I should be able to see all the enemies if I just draw them in here, because if they've got no jungler you should be able to see them all in the lane. So there'll be 2 up there, 1 here, and 2 down here usually. That's how that usually lanes out if nobody's got a jungler. So I'd be able to easily see what's happening around the map without having to have any sort of extra cameras up to guard my jungle, because there is no jungler. And then from basically this top camp I can come to their camp, get their speed destroyer, get more camps here, and then do a gank towards mid, go back down, go back into their jungle and repeat, and just do this whole cycle again in a massive big circle. Which, you know, when there's no enemy jungler, it's so easy to do. You've just got so much freedom to move around, gank as much as you want, and nobody's going to really harass you too much. But like I said, things change when there's an enemy jungler. So things change quite drastically if you're playing against another enemy jungler on the map. I usually keep to this rule of staying in my own half. So I draw the line down the middle, and whatever half I'm on, red or blue, I usually stay within that half. So say I'm on the red team, I would normally start on the health destroyer or this top camp here. Now, I say this top camp here to start first because it can sometimes give me an opportunity to steal the most exposed camp on the enemy half, which is this camp as well. It's very easy to travel across from there to here and steal it. And if you start on this camp, which I've drawn up now, if you start on this camp, you can then go over to this camp, steal it as quickly as possible, and then get out and get back into your own jungle. And just stealing one small camp like that away, you know, it'll gradually have an effect on the enemy team. They'll slightly be behind. They won't be that much more behind, but it would start, if you keep stealing this one camp over and over again every time it respawns, you'll gradually get further and further ahead, and you'll have more experience and credits. So if you can maintain that sort of that push, but that's as greedy as I pretty much get, unless I kill the enemy jungler somehow and I know that the health destroyer is up and speed destroyer and the health destroyer is up. I will go in for a steal maybe, because usually the laners will not go in the jungle unless the jungler has pinged it or they have vision or see you go in there. They will not try and stop you. And you know, when somebody leaves a lane, you should be looking at your minimap to see if they're coming in for you. You should be able to read that situation if you're reading your minimap correctly. So you don't really steal as much. You want to play a lot more passively. You want to stick to your half of the map mainly. Maybe steal this top camp if you're brave enough. But yeah, you got to cover and make sure that you always get your own health destroyer and your own speed destroyer. Make sure the enemy doesn't steal them. And to do that, your teammates will need to place a couple of good cameras. If you're playing against a good team, that is, and they do come in and steal. A camera here is always good. And also a camera here is always good, especially if you start here. So this way you know that your speed destroyer is not going to get taken and your health destroyer is not going to get taken if they come through here. So you kind of cover your bases this way. It's much easier to just stay in your own jungle and farm it out. And I will go, my route will end up like something like this. So I'll come health destroyer, top camp here. If I go for the steal, I go for it. If I don't, I will come back round and get this smaller camp, go towards my tower, pick up my Marauder Knife, upgrade it, go back round, kill camp, kill speed destroyer, come round, and again. And then, you know, whatever opportunity opens up in the lanes, I will come and gank them, if there is an opportunity, that is. Now, there's another thing that I didn't cover, but I'm going to cover it now. And this is when to go for these EMP destroyers. They're very important to capture these, because they give you so much control of the map once you can take down these towers, which is very important to do. So when to go for them is when your creeps or your drones have actually pushed up the lane. So if I'm on the red team, I need my drones to push up to this half of the map, and I shall change color. So once your drones are in this sort of area, you actually have an opportunity as a jungler to then go out and get these guys and eliminate them. Because if the drones are located in this area, both teams will have vision on the EMP. They'll be able to know when you're taking it or whenever you're not taking it. And usually there'll be somebody in the lanes and they will come and attack you no matter what. They just want you dead if they see you trying to get the EMP destroyer. And they might steal it away from you. So really, once you have an opportunity to push up the lane on both of these sides, that's the time to come in and do these camps. Now, important to note as well is that the EMP destroyers aren't just solely the jungle's responsibility. You should ping them out to your laners once the lane is pushed for them to get it. It's really helpful actually, because the EMPs are kind of out of the way for the junglers sometimes, and also it can reveal that, you know, you're out in this lane or you're in a position ready to gank or come from that position to gank, and it can give stuff away, it gives intel away. But when the laners push up and have a safe distance with the lane pushed up, then they should actually go for those EMPs as early as they possibly can, and it will help out the team quite a bit. Okay, that's the end of my jungling guide slash nightmare Batman guide, as it's sort of combined into sort of two there. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, dislike if you didn't like anything, tell me why you didn't like it, be constructive with your criticism. It always helps to help those new players that are joining into Infinite Crisis. I've been Zacubus and this has been Infinite Guides. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and see you next time.